everybody. Welcome to our second video lecture of the semester. Today I'm going to be talking to you about second generation activity theory. So we're kind of building on to what we talked about in the first half of the semester, and you're going to carry this information on into our next writing project. Not the abstract that we're working on currently, but our next project will ask you to dig deeply into those workplace documents again and to even interview someone about those documents. So you might want to be thinking about someone in your field that you might be able to talk to soon. So what I have up here is our kind of visual representation that we talked about last time. So this is our first generation activity theory. And as you can see, the bottom of our triangle is missing. That's because we're going to add some onto there. So just to kind of recap what we talked about last time, and I've turned this triangle a little bit. I think last time we had tools down here at the bottom and subjects was up at the top. But this time, just for the purposes of our new stuff, I think it'll be easier for us to take a look at it this way. So I have subjects down here this time and tools up at the top, and third is objectives. Those are the three main pieces of our first generation activity theory. And remember, if you're trying to fill this visual organizer out on your own, then you'll start right here in the middle with naming the activity system that you want to talk about. So as you can see here too in red, we have some basic questions that go along with each aspect of the triangle. I like to use questioning because it's an easy way to generate ideas and think about how do I want to fill in these different pieces. So we have at least one question that goes along with each one, even though we could come up with more questions. For subjects, we basically want to know who is involved in the activity system. For the tools, we want to know what kinds of materials are they using to get their jobs done, whether it's writing, like we're looking at this semester, or computers, or heavy machinery, anything like that. And then our third basic piece were the objectives, or we could even say outcomes here. What do people want to happen in their field or within this activity system? So we have what are the goals and tasks? What do people want to accomplish here? And we also talked last time about how all of these things are connected to each other. So I have some red arrows here to indicate that. And then for each one of these connections too, we could come up with a question about how are they connected. So just some examples of those kinds of questions too could be, how do the subjects relate to the objectives? Who is doing what job? And here between the subjects and the tools, we could say, well, are there different tools for different people that operate within this activity system? And finally, over here, connecting tools and objectives together, are there different tools for different jobs within the same activity system? The answer is probably yes, so we're going to take a look at all those. So what I want to do now is to add on to this, fill in our second generation piece. I'm going to erase these original questions just to make room for ourselves, because I'm going to have more questions of how can we connect the new pieces as well. So we're going to just get rid of these things first. Okay, now we have a nice clean visual organizer to work with again now. So what we're going to do is just extend the bottom of this triangle a little bit. We're going to add three more elements down here at the bottom. So the first element is rules. Rules. These are going to be any kind of norms or procedures, common methods that people go through within this activity system. So within your workplace, there are probably certain ways of doing things, expected ways of doing things. And if someone isn't following the rules or the procedures, then there are usually consequences to that too. So this is another aspect for us to look at to build some context when we're thinking about these kinds of environments. Why are things the way they are, right? And then right in the middle here, we're going to add community. Community. And community consists of other people, maybe even other activity systems with outside of this one that still impact things that are going on inside of it. So they might not be direct players within the activity system, but whatever they're doing still affects what goes on within the one that we're looking at here. So we'll take a look at a couple of examples here in just a second. But first, let's fill in this last piece. So the last piece of our triangle here is division of labor. Division of labor. So we're focusing this semester on workplace documents, these tools, right? So we want to look at how do these tools, these pieces of writing reflect where people are in this activity system, where their rank is. So one example of that quickly is, if we're going back to our first example of the university as the activity system, then one piece of writing that I use all the time as a teacher is the copy request form. So a little form that I fill out to have copies made. I put my original handout with that. I tell them how many pages do I fill out, how many, do I need them stapled, do I want them copied front and back, things like that. But if we take a look at who else is in this activity system, all the way from the top, maybe the president of the university, all the way down to the bottom, I don't know, whoever is down there. We could talk about pay scale, however you want to rank these people. And then, so the president is not going to be using a copy request form, right? So the people at the bottom of the ladder are not necessarily going to be teaching maybe, so they're not going to need copy request forms. So those documents kind of reflect my division of labor, where I fit in on this corporate ladder or university ladder or whatever it is. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, division of labor. And just like we did the first time, there's going to be different questions that we want to ask for each one of these aspects to help us fill in these different pieces. So with rules, our first question is just going to be, what are the norms? What are the rules that people follow? So by, again, saying that all these things are connected. So let me color code these arrows a little bit as we go along. And I'm going to coordinate the questions with the arrows so we can kind of see which area we're talking about. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me get these basic questions first, though. So rules, right? So what are the particular procedures that people follow in this area? Okay. That could be our question for rules. Community, simply who is outside of the activity system that still impacts what goes on within the activity system. Okay. And for division of labor, finally, where does this subject fall on the ladder, right? Or rank. What is their rank? What is the rank? Okay. Grab my hand out here. Okay. So in talking about how everything is connected, let's start with the outside of our triangle first. So let me grab a different color marker here. We already talked about how these three basic things are connected, so let's just focus on how these connect to our new ones and how the new ones connect with each other. So we could go from tools to rules. Tools to rules. How are tools and rules related? So how do the rules affect the document? Remember, we're focusing on writing, right? Okay, so this could be our question connecting these two things. Rules and tools. So on the other side here, let's move over then and talk about tools and division of labor. We've got tools and division of labor. We might ask ourselves, do people in all positions use the same documents, right? We're still coming from that perspective of the writing. So our tool is our starting place, and we say, how does that reflect the division of labor? Or do all people in all ranks use that document? Okay. Okay. So since it's writing that we're talking about here. So next we'll go from our outside extremes on each corner here. So we'll think about how is division of labor connected to the rules. How is division of labor connected to the rules? So we might say, how do the rules differ for different people in different ranks? So that might be getting kind of small, but it says, how do the rules differ for different people in different ranks? Right? You might be able to see, even as an outsider, that the rules may not apply to everyone within a company, right? We want to think about those things too when we're thinking about activity systems. Okay, now let's move on to our next set of connections, because it gets a little complicated here, and I'm going to have a handout to go with this. So if this looks kind of messy right now, it'll be more organized once I get it all typed up and put up for you. So now let's talk about the relationship between community and tools. It's going to be who is outside of the activity system, first of all, that is impacting what goes on inside, and what tools are they using? Are there different pieces of writing? Are there different tools that are being used? Okay, who outside of the activity system is using tools? How are they different from the tools used within our activity system is probably the main question here. And what are those tools? Right? How are they different? We might talk about genres in that part of our discussion. Okay, let me switch colors here, and let's talk about how subjects and objectives and community are all related. Okay, here's where we start getting real colorful, right? Let's talk about how subjects, objectives, and community are all related. We might ask ourselves, what interest is shared by people within the same, or with the same objectives, right? What interest is shared by people with the same objectives? Alright, we're overlapping a lot now. I hope that you can follow me here. So, what interest is shared by people with the same objectives? So we have the people, we have the objectives, and we're also talking about what is this shared interest. So who from the outside is helping us meet our goals, basically, right? Who from the outside is helping us meet our goals? That's probably a good question. Okay. Switching gears again here. We can think about how each section is related, right? So let's talk about how this relates to this and along here. So we could think about how subjects and community and division of labor are all connected. We might say, first, we might list the subjects. Who are the subjects? And then we might add to that list by saying, here's the inside people. Who's the outside people? Right? Who are the outside people? So they're coming in. We're going to list the inside people, then the outside people, and then we're going to say, we're going to rank them by hierarchy, right? Inside and out. Who's involved at what stage? Who's the most important in making this thing happen? Okay, so for this green part here, we're going to do three things. Three things. You're going to list the subjects, first of all. You're going to add the community members. And then you're going to rank them by hierarchy. Okay. Rank them by hierarchy. So that's how you would see how these three things are related. Okay? And we could keep going and keep going with this, right? We could break it down by threes, we could break it down by pairs, we could talk about how it's all related to each other, and that's really what we're going to do in essence. But I'm not going to keep scribbling on this board because obviously it's getting a little hard to pay attention to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a handout with some questions that go with each aspect of this. I'm not going to be able to fit them all up here on this board, as you can see. So I'll have a handout that goes with this. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to email me. I'm just kind of presenting this information to you a little bit early so we can start absorbing it. It obviously goes along with those readings that we've just been doing about Kane and Wardle and genre theory with Chandler. So we're going to keep talking about all of this stuff too. Okay. So, what else do I want you to know before I let you go? I think that's it. So thank you for watching my second video lecture of the semester. I hope that it wasn't too convoluted for you, and I hope that this helps you think about this second generation activity theory stuff. We'll have some more readings, and we'll do some more activities that have to do with all this sort of stuff too. So if you feel like you're overwhelmed with information right now, don't feel too bad. I think probably everyone feels like this. It's not a simple subject, as you can see, so we're going to work our way through it piece by piece.